be one of them radical preachers, but he was good. But he always say stuff that always, yeah. And I remember him, he used to always like to badger Brother Urshan and them. They liked him, but they thought he was a whippersnapper, you know. Yeah, because he would do stuff. I mean, he would when he got the mic in his hand, he was dangerous. Yeah, but he was refined, but he knew his personality was different. And like most people, he lived his personality. And I remember one time he got up and he said, he was at the campground, he was preaching a camp meeting. He said, now, when I was 35 or 40, he said, you said I wasn't old enough to say what I say. He said, when I got 50, you said I still wasn't old enough. He said, so I don't know how old I got to be to say what I got to say, but I'm saying it now. I liked him. I really did. He was one of my favorite preachers. And I guess that's where I am. I was too young to say things, but anymore I cannot say what needs to be said if necessary, because the thing that gets me more about this every day is the fact that I know God is real. He is not just the figmentation of my imagination, and not just knowing that he's real, but he's real to me. And it's, a lot of people, God is real to everybody else. Like I noticed, like I told Brother Thornton, I feel bad. I wish I'd never got on Facebook. I wish I'd never got on. I mean, it has some good things, but 90% of the stuff that we involve ourselves in is so, it's not bringing the results that we want. And you have a lot of people that want to rehearse their religion on Facebook and make God look bad. Now here's my thing is this. See, it's one thing for me or you to complain about the world, complain about stuff in the world. But if I'm a Christian, if I have any kind of complaint at all, I'm going to talk to the one that can change it. But I think that we have so formulated or formalized religion to the place that you can do a lot without doing anything. You can talk a lot without touching anybody. Even in our praying, I have always believed in prayer. They told me when I came in, you had to pray to stay. I believed that when I came in. Did I know how to pray? No. I learned how to pray, listening to other people. But then I finally realized that I had a lady that raised me kind of biblically once I got in church. And, man, she was faithful. When you talk about prayer every morning at 5 o'clock, if you'd stayed in her house, you're getting up at 5 o'clock and pray, period. Now, whether you want to get up or not, now she ain't going to make you get up, but she's going to keep singing the songs that you can't sleep on. And she was not a singer. And she's going to keep singing that same song until you finally get up and come on up there and help her sing it so she can quit singing it. But anyway, in watching, listening to her pray every morning, the only thing that got me is that I realized that she had prayed so long that she said the same thing every day. Yes. Prayer is a spiritual encounter. Yes. It's a spiritual deal. Most of the time we want to pray and have faith without praying in faith. And here's the difference is that, see, there's this thing, God leads you into prayer. He'll lead you what to pray for. So he said, You don't even know what you have need of. But he does. Now, if he can lead you and guide you, wouldn't he lead you into that place? To where that you would, even though you didn't know what you was praying for, or even ask him, but he knew the answer he wanted to give you. So there's a lot of things that have caused me. People say, man, Brother Wilson, he backslid, he compromised, all kind of stuff. I done heard it all. One thing about God is this: you're not going to be living in him without knowing him. We are always one revelation away from knowing more about him. All I can know about God is what he reveals to me. All you're ever going to know about God is what he reveals to you. So over this lifetime, as we go, because most people will say, well, how do you God do it for you? He ain't never done it for me. Me and you are not the same. See, God didn't have them cookie cutters. When he called you and I, he had a purpose in mind. I had no idea what that was. Still don't have, a clue. I just know he had a purpose. And all I'm trying to do is fulfill whatever that purpose was. Because I told Brother Thornton, I'm laying in the bed last night and I was thinking about one of the prophets. May have been in Ezekiel, I'm not sure now, I'm not real certain, but he had him to be a sign to the people of God. He said, I want you to go to Jerusalem, strip, lay on your right side for 300 and some days, and eat moldy bread. Isn't it strange that we want to replicate everything in the Bible, but I have not heard not one guy who called himself a prophet that ever came and told me that God told him to do that. Now, I heard him come and tell them that God told them that you need to give me $100. I've heard him say that God told me that he's going to give you a 100-fold blessing if you. But I've never seen God be able to tell one of these guys to step into a fire furnace, get in a lion's den, because we think a lion's den is not being able to pay the water bill. God, I'm going to overcome this giant. Well, anyway, let me just say this here. I think one of the keys to really walking in God, first thing we need to do is rightly divide the word. When he say rightly divide the word, evidently it has to be rightly divided. We have to know the difference between who's he talking to, why is he talking to them. We need to know what covenant we're under. Most important thing now is most people that are under the new covenant has an old covenant mentality. Okay? So we're never going to be able to enjoy the fullness of God without a new covenant faith. Okay? Now, the new covenant faith is not like old covenant faith. There's a big difference in what, if there was no difference in it, then Jesus would never have made such a big thing out of Calvary. But it's such a difference between the mindsets of the new covenant believer and that of an old covenant believer. We're going to look in Jeremiah a little while. We'll just look. I'll share some things with you. I remember even teaching this long. I probably taught it maybe 4 or 5 times. But each time I go in it, I begin to realize there's so much more that I miss because a lot of times I'm going in nervously. It's kind of eye-opening when you see things that pops out at you and you say, now, why haven't I seen that? Why didn't I see that then? But in Jeremiah 31, oh, I've got to turn Now, this is the prophet Jeremiah. And we know that this gospel is built upon the prophets and Jesus Christ being the chief cornerstone. So now he makes a statement here. And I'm not sure when I read it the first time that I saw it. I'm not sure the second time. But in Jeremiah 31:31, it says, "Behold, the day comes, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah." So now, in other words, now he had one with them. But the day comes when he's going to make a new one. Okay? Now he goes on and say, now this is the part. Because no matter how we look at this, this is the part, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, saith the Lord. He makes a very valid point there in talking about his relationship with them, because he saw himself not just as their God, but as their husband, because they were the church he was bringing out. That's why the word ecclesia for church is called out ones. When you talk about church, it means he's got to call that out of something. He called Israel out of Egypt. So he recognized them as being his church coming out of Egypt. It's important that we understand that now these foundational teachings, these coming out of Egypt and all that, we need to put that together and understand how does that fit in this new phase when he, once again, do what he done with them, these first people in Egypt. There was nothing special about them. It wasn't because they was rich. It wasn't because they was many. And he chose, first of all, it was God's choice to make a covenant with them. He made a covenant with them. Now, a covenant he made with them, it's like us getting marriage license. It's like it is a contract. And the contract he made with them, he bought them out. He's going to be a husband. He's going to be a father. He's going to be their God. But he set stipulations that will really make it rough. Looks simple. Because you know, all thing you will say, tell people, just tell me what to do, and I'll do it. Well, that's usually as good as long as we're doing something that we're capable of doing. But then when you ask someone to do something that they're not capable of doing, now it's a real problem. And them receiving those 10 Commandments and thinking, we've been over here in Egypt. We've had to do everything you can name in Egypt. Work hard. They made us work without the proper stuff to work with. Made us go and do triple work. And now all of a sudden God says, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to marry you. I'm going to make you my wife. I'm going to make a contract with you, give you a covenant, and I'm going to give you 10 laws, and all you'll have to do is just do these 10. And if you can do these 10, then you're good. Ha! There ain't nothing to that. But see, what God knows that you don't know, you are not even capable on your best day, to please God in the flesh, period. On your best day. So he knew that, but they didn't know that. Because generally what happened with people is that we're always gauging ourselves by others. And we don't have to be the best, just be better than the next guy. Or we don't have to be perfect as long as we can find someone imperfect. As long as we can look at somebody and say, well, you know, I ain't perfect. There ain't nobody perfect. Well, yes, there is somebody else. Jesus. And so we'll say, well, So I don't have it all. Y'all pray that I get it all together. What are you telling me? What are you trying to say? You want God to wait? I mean, if you know, knowingly, like everybody should know, no matter how much I get up and sing Amazing Grace, I really need Amazing Grace. You know, I don't know about everybody else. I need it. Okay, so now I realize that if there anything in my life that came up short or going to come up short, he made provision for you before you got here. And, well, I'm trying to be saved. That's the reason why you'll never be saved. He never called you to try to be saved. He called you to accept his salvation. And that, when you accept his salvation, that is, you got to be saved. See, it's not about what we're trying to do. Sometimes we want God to bless our effort, when all he wants to do is bless your faith. Your faith is greater than your effort. I may not be able to do it, but I believe him to do it. My faith is greater than my effort. He's not going to reward our efforts like we think. There is, see, the law of sowing and reaping is a law that works spiritually and naturally. If you sow, I don't care, you ain't got to be saved to sow good. But if you sow good, 9 times out of 10, you're going to reap some good. But a lot of people are reaping harvests today that they planted and they thought they were planting spiritual stuff, but it was not being sown to the Spirit. Because if you sow to the Spirit, you're going to reap spiritual things. When you sow to the flesh, you're going to reap. And that, now I know you'll say, that ain't all bad. No, it ain't all bad. You know, it ain't all bad, but it don't ever end good. Because there's nothing you're going to sow to your flesh that's eternal. Everything I sow to my flesh is a temporary fix. So there's nothing I can get in my flesh. It's so great that God wants me to take it out of this world with me to heaven. Okay? Nothing. I can build the best house in the world. Guess what? Gonna stay right here. Ain't going nowhere. I can make all the money in the world. Guess what? It'll be right here when I leave. So now, that's why it's important, I think, for Christian people, first of all, to get some definitions, spiritual definitions, instead of this flesh definition we got. When Jesus said, I come that you might have life. Now notice he didn't stop there. He said, now not just life, but that life. I want that life in you to be an abundant life. 99.9% of Christians I meet today is not bragging or even rejoicing about any kind of abundant life. I haven't heard that one. I haven't heard Christians excited about the life that Jesus gave. Now they'll talk about the life they fixed after Jesus came. And of course, when you quit doing all the bad things you was doing, yeah, of course life's going to get better. You know why? You're not sowing that no more. Of course it's going to get better. But is that what he just came to do, just so that you have a route to take to the grocery store, to the church building, to your house, and maybe in the backyard and have a barbecue, and that's it? Is that abundant life? And saying, I know it's got to be something outside of money, because if abundant life only came through money, then we should all be millionaires. So he had another thing in mind. But anyway, let me keep reading here. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day I took them by the hand to bring them out, land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, saith the Lord. What did he have to do since he was a husband? Wow. See now, one thing I like about God, he really didn't have a way out. He really didn't. He had set the rules. He said now, because, I remember when I came in, they used to preach real hard about divorcements and things like that. And one day I asked the preacher, I said, well, if he don't want us to do that, then why did he do that? Because he would have to. He was married to her. Then he gave us stipulations for it. And once he gave stipulations for it, he really was setting himself up to be able to be free so that you and I could enjoy what we're enjoying right now. Otherwise, she was married to him for life. As long as he lived, she was married to him. Carol was more than just about you and I. It was about getting rid of a covenant that could only be done by death. So now, here's what you need to understand. Now, once he died, to get rid of this covenant, because they can only live with him in that covenant if they both live under it. So when he says that I'm going to give you a new covenant, when he meant a new covenant, he could no way, under no circumstance, go back and marry himself to them under Judaism and call them his people. I even have a problem. Now, I'm not anti-Semitic, and I know anytime you say anything remotely like you sound like you may not like Jews. Look here, first of all, I am not anti-Semitic. I'm not anti-nothing. I'm just don't believe in them anti-Christ, whoever they be. But now, here he is. Now, he got to, boy, I lost my thought there real quick messing with that. But we have people today saying stuff like, Israel is God's chosen people. If you read this Bible very closely, you'll realize one thing. He no longer accepts any people in the flesh. I'm not trying to apologize to anybody. I ain't even trying to apologize to anybody. I'm just telling you right now. God knows no man after the flesh. And that is the very reason why, without his Spirit, you are none of his. I don't care what your daddy name was. It doesn't matter where you tell me you came from. We need to quit propagating lies. Because in propagating lies, we got people feeling inferior that's supposed to be feeling superior. I belong to God. I've been purchased, and so have you, by the blood of Jesus. There is no other blood anywhere in the world. I don't care how many red heifers you get without spots. It can never remove sin. I don't care how many cows you kill on an altar and pour blood until it flows up to your neck. It will never forgive sin. Don't care whether you get all them cows and get them on an altar and sprinkle it all in your little temples. It ain't gonna do nothing for God. You know why? He took his own blood, sprinkled it in his own temple, and he got his own temple where his blood is now. And if you don't have his blood, you are none of his. I don't care what you say. Oh, man, I wouldn't say that. Man, God's going to curse you. No, friend, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'll put my foot down. I'm believing what he told me. And I believe what he told us is true. We are a new people. And not only are we a new people, but even those that used to be called his people can become his people. Because he fixed it that way. Long as you come to him under his new covenant, You can come. But he'll never accept anybody under an old covenant talking about how many cows you done killed and how many lambs you done slain and how many red heifers you took to sanctify your altar. There ain't no more altars for him. He had his own altar. He poured his blood out on his own altar. Then took his own blood like the high priest would in the old covenant and sprinkled his whole place. Cleansed heaven with his own blood. Now you're going to tell me he's going to let you take some cow blood and sprinkle it so you can get in his place? No, please, help me. Y'all pray for me. Pray for me. If I'm saying this wrong, please don't hesitate. I will not get angry. Show me where I am missing this at. Show me where God changed his mind. Show me where Calvary got undone. And we went back under something that he had cleared us up. Show me. I don't want to be rude. But I may wake up soon and see him sooner than you. I just want to make sure I go out right. You know what I'm saying? I just want to make sure I go out right. So if I'm saying this wrong, please don't hesitate. Tell me, Brother Wilson, now here's what God said right here. Okay, show me. Okay. He said, but this is the covenant I'll make with the house of Israel. After those days, said, Lord, I put my laws in their what? Inward parts, and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. Now, it doesn't sound like to me like he's trying to go back to the letter. Sound like to me he's talking about writing. Now, when God writes, we don't even know what kind of ink he uses. I don't know what kind of ink he uses, but he said, I'm going to write some things in you. And now when I write them in you, I'm going to show them to you. And see, most people do not trust God enough to believe that. You know, there's a lot of things I could say. I'm not trying to make you doubt anything about God. But the most important thing I want you to understand is that God wants to know you, wants you to know him more than you really want to know him. And he uses all kinds of things to help you, bring you to places of confidence, because he wants you to have the confidence. Trust me. Trust me. Yeah, when everything else, trust me. They shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord. For they shall know me from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith the Lord, for I will forgive their iniquities, and I will remember their sin no more. Now here, this part that scared me. This is the part that made me run from this in my early life. Because it said you didn't need no teachers. And I kind of felt like he was missing on that little part, that we did need, and you still, don't get me wrong, because he did give teachers. But what he was really trying to say, I think, more than anything, is the fact that if you really didn't have a teacher, he is a teacher. As the Holy Ghost really is the teacher of God. It is supposed to lead and guide you into. You could never read enough Bible to get that. Oh, here we go. Man, I read my Bible all the time and just telling you right now, there's people been reading the Bible all their life, but they're still not there. Because it takes more than the Bible to get there. It takes his spirit to put you there. This Bible is really our guardrails. It is a real good guardrail, but you got to rightly divide it. But it's going to take, if all we done, and think about this, everybody, we probably got more Bibles in America than any other country in the world. You used to find a Bible in every household. Maybe not now, but used to be. Everybody had a Bible. Gideon kept us with Bibles. So if this was all we needed, then we should have a better nation right now. something, we read the Bible and we got quoted scriptures from the Bible and we hang banners about the Bible, but if all we had was the Bible to read and not his understanding, then we all in trouble, because that's where we're at right now, is that we got big religious movements. And I'm not trying to get into naming nothing. I'm trying to hurt nobody's feelings, but we got big religious movement that promotes their religious doctrines that, and will not let you see anything other than what they believe. I grew up across the street from me in my hometown is that there was a big Catholic church. My aunt, she was I don't know what she was. I think sometimes she was Methodist. And I think she fell out with them. She became Baptist. And I finally got to come to a Pentecostal service one time. She liked that. But she thought that the nuns were like the Virgin Mary. Woo. If I said anything kind of remotely derogatory towards them, Hillary, oh, them sweet people, real sweet people, God's people. You see, we've been fooled by so much hibernation of spirituality. Hybrids. I'm not trying to say they're all wrong, but, I don't know how they feel about God, but I just know that something never set it right with me about that, because a lot of things that they believe I knew couldn't be right. But apart from that, so now we come now in the new covenant, and most of the time we come, back in the day when I came in, the people who we call charismatic, they would call us old covenant believers and laugh at us, and so you can go too far one side and too far the other side. I just want to meet God. If nothing else, let me meet him and find out what he's saying about all this. Because we had the Bible, it was divided into old and new. We divided it into old and new, because mostly even the new that we read today about the new covenant is still during the time that the old covenant was still in force. It's almost like saying, like when King Saul was king over Israel and David was called by God to be the king, and yet he was in kind of like exile, right? But the real king that God recognized was King David. And it was his kingdom that God was really concerned about, because he said, man, David, he's a man after my own heart. So now, David's got a little kingdom, but he got a little tent. All he got outside is the little tent and the Ark of the Covenant. But they got a whole temple built in Raymond, I think it is. They had a whole temple built over there. And yet here's David got one little ark and a little tent, and they all out here, man, just praising God, ain't killing no sheep. They just worshiping and praising God, and the blue light special is on, and the blue light is on, and everybody just having a great time. But yet, on the surface, you will look at that and say, now, here God's got a king, King Saul, and then he got a little dude named David, and he's got a kingdom. But now King Saul's kingdom looked like it was on and going, but it's coming down, because God is going to build a kingdom that he called. Now, the kingdom that was in place, it's the same thing like when he came to Jerusalem, came to Israel. There's a kingdom in place when he gets here. But he's like the son of David. Guess where everybody going to be gathering later? Around his tent. He's just like David. He looked like he was not the one, because even the people of God was even talking about he was an illegitimate child. They called him. They got all kind of things they say about Jesus Christ to blow your mind. That he's still in hell right now with urine and all stuff on him. I mean, these are books they wrote. Okay? So, but he was the one that's going to have the kingdom. It was a kingdom that God was concerned about. And so we are a part of that kingdom. So he came to straighten it all out, Son of David. It's not, when you read these things, such as they'll call him the Son of David, know how that connects. He ain't just saying that. He's not just telling you, you need to go back and look at David's life to realize some things about why he would call him the Son of David, not the son of Saul. And part of that reason why, first of all, that when you read and study the Bible more, you notice one thing: rarely, if ever, the firstborn son of a man ever aspired to be the firstborn. Because firstborn is the one who gets everything. Okay? But there was never really a firstborn son. Adam didn't have a firstborn. Not really. Because he wasn't the firstborn. He was the first created. See, you can't produce but after your own kind. Since Adam was not born, he could not ever be a firstborn. He's the first created. So everything Adam's going to produce from now on is going to be another creature from the first creation, but not a son. So now you understand why that Jesus now has to come by the womb of a woman. Because see, the mother, the woman was going to be the conduit of all living things coming through. Okay? So now, when her and Adam meet, the only thing they can do is produce another creature. Neither one of them was born. They were created. So it takes from then till the Holy Ghost overshadowed Mary. Mary's going to be the first woman that's going to really have the opportunity to have a firstborn son. That's why the Bible calls Jesus Christ the firstborn. Because he was the firstborn. Everything else was after their kind, and so he was always under the first creature. That's why the Bible called the second creation, or you got the first creation, the second creation. But when Jesus came through Mary, that is a whole new ball game. And not only did he come through Mary, but by the way he came through Mary, because the father of that baby was spiritual. So all Jesus can produce is after his kind. Spiritual. Everybody come through that? Come through Jesus Christ? You got to be, that's what the Bible says, you must be the what? You got to be born again. Why? Because if you live your whole life out and never get born again, then you got to die like a creature. Because a creature is dead. He broke the first law. In the day you eat, you die. There's nothing you and I can do as human beings to ever offset what Adam did in the beginning. Never. There's nothing. You can't get the right medicine. You can't drink the right tonics and do all the right exercise. Go to the gym all you want to. Do all that push-ups and all you want to. They say it make you live longer, but you can't prove that one to me. I'm not even trying to fight you on that. I'm not going to the gym. I'm not pushing up. I'm going to run out to the car. I'm just saying, So when you understand now why you need to be born again. See, most people say, well, boy, they're a good person. If you have not been born again, you are living in a dead nature that's going to die. You can't change that. All right? The only body that can change this, the miracle of new birth is a miracle. It is one of the greatest miracles we've ever seen. How can you change natures? See, it's impossible to change natures. You know, we got dogs. I know I have people have pets, dogs, especially dogs, and they feel like they're part of the family. That's okay. I ain't gonna lie to you, I've never had a dog that sat down at my eating table with me with a knife and fork. Some of y'all may have trained some of y'all dogs to do that. Mine haven't. Matter of fact, my dog is not gonna even sit at my table. But I knew there's a lot of things you can do with dogs. You can have them where you get on the hind leg, get on and beg you for a biscuit. Put the head on the head, all kinds of things. Turn around in a circle, turn flips, and almost act like they want to talk. I've seen some smart dogs, but at the end of the day, I don't care if he licks you all in the face, slobbered all over you. He is a dog. Okay? He is still a dog. And a no amount of training can ever make him be anything but a dog. Now I want you to hear this. See, we can train you how to be a Christian. But if your nature never changed, guess what? That's all we're doing is training. Because you'll never be. Without a new nature, you'll never be a Christian. Never. And so all you've done is went through the training process. You learn how to get on the hind legs and beg for bones, lick and all that stuff. But that don't mean that the dog is human, because he can do some human things. Same thing with you and I. We can be trained to be what we say we are without ever becoming that. I was a soldier. I went to the army. Man, they trained me to be a soldier. And when I put that uniform on, I was a soldier. Boy, but when they gave us leave, and I took that uniform on, I ain't saluting nobody. I ain't marching. I ain't doing none of that. But come Monday morning, though, I got to put the uniform back on. I've been trained to be a soldier. See, God wasn't just looking for us to get trained to do something. He wanted to do something to make us be something. He had already seen the performance of people who were training to do stuff. They had the rules, and they trained to live by the rules. They had trained to do the things that they done. Probably killing cows, had no feelings for the cows whatsoever, had no feelings for what it was going to do. They just doing it, just kill it, just kill it. First chance they get, they ain't in training. And they're acting out who they are. Same thing now. God is doing more than want you to be trained. He wants you to become. You've been training all these years. I've been living for God for 50 years. Why don't you allow the next few years him live through you now and see what he can do? That way you won't be doing that much for him, because he really came to do more for you than you have allowed. And really, to be honest with you, he can do everything for you so that you make it easier for you to be changed. Anyway, so often that, like I said, we read the Bible and we need to understand there's a lot of things, especially even in the book of Acts, even though he's introduced the new covenant to us, the new covenant is not in full force. The new covenant can never be in full force until there's a death to the other. All right? He died to bring in a new covenant. But he's got to get rid of this wife too. The destruction of Jerusalem was more than just the destruction of Jerusalem. We read it, Titus 70 AD came in, knocked it down. And it was more, the statement being made there is more than the fact that it came and destroyed the city. That there was put in the way of that woman for good. It's over. That's why the temple was tore up. That's why the temple was destroyed, because the temple was like the symbol of him being married to them. He destroyed the temple. When he destroyed the temple, he was telling them then, this is over. You see, when they went in, you remember when the Bible tells you that when Jesus Christ cried on the cross and it said that veil in the temple was rent from top to the bottom. First of all, from top to bottom, let them know this is a God thing. I did this. I'm starting from top down. Okay, now when he rent that and said, it's finished, it's over, the temple was rent. Of course, you know how people are. Oh, they, as the devil. Ask the devil. We're going to sew this baby back up. We know God is too good. This is us. So they sold it back up, pretending that God was still back there when he wasn't. Till eventually God had to destroy the whole thing so that everybody know he wasn't. Because if it would have been God's house, who can destroy his house? You're going to tell me that here's the Almighty God, got all this power, and all of a sudden he going to let a handful of men come and destroy what's here? They can't even destroy what he's already got here. I know they going on about all this green stuff and the earth is dying. I promise you, as long as there's somebody here breathing, this earth's going to be spinning and everybody's going to be still okay. Okay? I'm not on this. I ain't trying to hook up nothing. No. They on this thing, boy, earth is being destroyed. It's going to take a lot more of us than this to destroy that, okay? Because God only had to do one little thing. He can wipe out over half of us in a minute. If God decides that the earth is to be destroyed, it'll be destroyed. It won't be because it was our decision to do it. It will never happen. Because you know what? This is worlds without end. I don't believe that God created anything that you can mess up. Because we don't even know how it got here. Really don't know how it was made. We're still questioning those things. And God got all this stuff. Man, you let your mind go. Man, you can go crazy trying to figure out the stuff that God's got out here already. How did he know that? You know? How did he know all this stuff? I mean, you just little things that just blows my mind. How did he come up with that? How do you know this little rat don't like these poison berries? And they only grow where the rat is. Okay, anyway. So when we begin to look at the Bible times, when we read the Bible, we've got to realize that when you read the Bible, it's basically written. It's got New Covenant writings in there, but basically most of the whole Bible, see, it doesn't end until really Jerusalem ends, and that's over in the book of Revelation. So what happens is that now we got to try and understand the church in the book of Acts, and all these new churches starting. Now, they're coming out. Ecclesia, the church, called out one. They're being called out from her. Now, when we get up and preach in our pulpit, first thing we testify, God called me out of Egypt. Now, the early church, they were in Jerusalem. And God called them out of there. So did he liken Jerusalem to Egypt? Oh, don't worry, don't be scared. It's okay. No, he told you in the book of Revelation. He said that city, that great city that's known in the spirit that's known in the spirit. See, it's not what we know in our head and our flesh. Notice what he said. It's known in the spirit as being Sodom and Egypt. Now, we know reading the Bible, these two worst places there was in the whole book. He overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah with fire. And he said, this place here, this great city that everybody's talking about now, supposed to be going to the Holy Land, there's no such thing. No such thing. Because the Bible tells you in the book of Revelation, in that place it's a whole of every foul spirit. I didn't say that. The Bible tells you that. Now, that great city is not wrong. Because I didn't tell you what the great city is, so you don't have to guess. You ain't gotta try to look past what it tells you. Where our Lord was crucified, that great city, it wasn't wrong. But the great city it talks about said that in the spirit, this city is known as Sodom and Egypt. So it's only likely that when God calls the church on the day of Pentecost, where does he have to call them out of? He got to call them out of Egypt. He got to call them out of that city. Okay? And really, not just out the city, but really call them out of that temple worship. Because really, their connection was the temple worship. That's why you read in that where he says, "Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost?" Now, can you imagine going to church all your life and believing that everything you've done all your life was the right thing to do, and all of a sudden, someone come along and tell you that, man, you the church? No, Brother Wilson, I got to go to church. You see, the problem with that is you practice it. You're not becoming. See, he's already declared who you are. Now it's up to you to become who he said you are. If he says that you are saved, guess what? Be saved. All right? If he says you're healed, because all these things that we try to get from God, we must try to qualify it through our flesh for it to be real. If he say be healed, well, y'all pray to God heal me one of these days. Yeah, okay, no, just be healed. Well, what do you mean, be healed? Just be healed. Well, but I don't feel, be healed. It ain't always feeling healed, but be healed. And most of the things that we want from God, we have, but we don't have it because we want to feel something about it, feel a certain way about it, or hope that we can see a certain way about it. But if he said it, all he's asking you to do is be. Oh, I don't feel saved. Well, what does that feel like? Tell me. I just want to know, you know. And what does it feel like if you are? Is there a certain something jump on you? Or is it because you drank the Mountain Dew and you got energized? Does that tell you you're saved? Because I'm sure that many people in the Bible, if it came down to feeling, did they feel saved? I'm sure they probably didn't. I don't think Job would have. He wouldn't have. He did looked at his situations and thought that God, he did think that God was. Not only did he, but his wife even thought that maybe. I think she wanted a new husband. Because she got tired of him sitting there picking his sores and stuff. And she said, man, go on and curse God and die. Now that's hard. Now that's really hard. So, like I said, there's things that I think that we have to look at carefully. Now, I don't expect anybody to jump on any kind of bandwagon. I'm not even trying to put you on one. But I do want you to do one thing. Get in him and let him show you what needs to be seen. So the new covenant, we looked at that and say it's going to be a husband. And if you get time, look at Matthew chapter 5:32. It has a discourse on about divorcements and all that. In Leviticus, I'm going to run out of time, but in Leviticus chapter 26, also there are blessings and cursings and things that need to be read. And I think that sometimes we need to read these and understand why I have no intentions of being an old covenant saint. There ain't no such thing. I'm not trying to be an old covenant saint, because if the only penalty for breaking those laws is death, if you go back under them, there remaineth no more sacrifice for breaking them. If Jesus came to fulfill the law, paid the price for the law, took the death of every person under the law, he took their death. That's what Calvary is about. It's fulfilling the law in his flesh, so that he in turn now can give you what you have now called a changed nature. No longer can I live after God, after the flesh. The only way you ever going to please him is that you live in him by his Spirit. Oh, Bro Wilson, I don't know about all that now. Now, I don't know. You know, Paul takes the book of Hebrews. They say he wrote the book of Hebrews. Probably did. Whoever wrote it was real well-versed. Probably was Paul. But he was showing you the difference in this. The book of Hebrews was to Hebrews, people who were steeped in the law. Paul even said, man, it's touching the law, I was blameless. Well, how can you be blameless? How can you be blameless touching the law and still be the chiefest of sinners? How? He said, it's touching the law blameless. There's nothing you can pick out the law and pick me apart with. I'm blameless. He said, but I am the chiefest of sinners. How? Can you explain to me blameless in the law, but yet at the same time the chiefest of sinners? Because the law was the law of sin and death. You may best the law, but you could never really perfect the law. It could never perfect you. You may be blameless, but the first commandment got you messed up. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is, and him only. That number one, that messed him up for the rest of the 9. And then Jesus comes and said, well, I'm going to simplify it for you, because that first law that I gave you under the 10 Commandments, you could have never lived, because your nature wouldn't have never allowed you to love God like that. We're born idolatrous people. We're going to have gods, all kind of gods. We create gods all the time. We make stuff God. We don't call them that, but that's what they are. We worship them. We put a lot of emphasis on that. And so Jesus comes and said, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to give you 2. And all you got to do, just 2. And then you say, that's too easy. Have you ever tried it? Bro, well, that's too easy. Just 2 of them? Yeah, but them 2 are so bad. They so bad. Man, they uncover us. They totally uncover us. Because then, you see, first thing you're going to say, man, I love God. I love God with all my heart. Careful. He may find a part that you ain't loved him with yet. Careful. We have a lot of statements sound good. Man, I love the Lord all my heart. I want to. But you see, I'm wise enough to know I don't know how to. Okay? I don't even know my heart. Do you? No, I don't even know my heart. No man knows his heart. Then how am I going to tell and make that statement? I love the Lord with all my heart. I don't even know my heart. Say, I need him in me. Putting the love I need for him in me. That's why he baptized you, so you ain't got to go to your witch's brew and try to stir up a love potion for God. He put the potion in you. And then he turned around and say, now, then what happens is this. I'm getting ready to close. Here's what really hurts us. He put it in us. And then we want to stay on that. Number one, I love God with all my heart. Then he turned around and said, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do now. Now that I put that in you, I want you to just let it go. Then that's when flesh kicked in. That's when that flesh started kicking in. It started saying things like this. They don't deserve my love. It wasn't your love in the beginning, was it? I thought it was his. Well, see, when you find somebody in your life that don't deserve the love that God gave you, you're in trouble. Because, see, the next commandment you're going to break. And you ain't going to be able to keep that one. You're going to be trying to make excuses. Well, I know the Bible said this, but ain't nobody said that one. Now, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples. It ain't because I shook your hand and kissed you on the neck. It ain't because I picked you up for church either. No, ain't none of that. You're not going to believe this, boy. It's the most simplest thing in the world to know that you're healed. And the only thing, and the one thing we don't have that shows us that we are healed. That's why we have to put crosses around our necks and bumper stickers on the car, honk if you love Jesus. It's because we can't show the world his love. See, if we allow God to be God in our life. No, you may not change the whole, just change the world you're in. Sometimes we think we need to do a whole bunch, but if you just change the world that you live in, if you can touch the people that's in your world, in your circle, that's where God have you at. Well, I think God got a work for me to do. A work for you to do? No, he got a rest for you to do so he can work. That's the key. He got a rest for you to do so that he can work through you. He'll have no problem reaching out, touching people's lives through you if you allow him to flow through you. All right? Quit trying to love people and just be loved. Oh, I know. Once again, I got to quit. Here's the problem. Let me say this here. Here is the problem, because the word love has so many different definitions and meanings. And we have used so many of them in our episodes. Love, different dimensions and all that. But let me just say this here. He's not talking about the love the world has. He's talking about the love that he gives. There's a difference in what God gives and what the world gives you is a definition of what you thought God should have gave. Big difference, okay? I'm going to quit right there. Any questions before I stop? Yes, sir. Look at you, boy. Look at you. Look at you. Look at you. inheritance. There's no heir.
And then, matter of fact, in the New Testament, it talks about producing sons. And so I'm thinking to myself, man, I said, and all those people that think that there's an inheritance in that first covenant, they need to learn the law of the sonship. So anyway, I just had to put that out there.
That is, thank you. Okay, appreciate that. Because what you said is so true. Without a son, there is no inheritance. That's why, see, Moses was not a son. That's why they didn't have an inheritance. If you notice one thing, he never called Moses son. He always called him servant. My servant. And his servant doesn't have an inheritance. All he does is serve. And he works in the barn and makes sure the cows and everything's kept right. All right? I am not a servant. I made one of my bishops kind of angry because I told him, I said, God didn't call me to be a servant. He called me to be a son. First, become a son so you'll know how to serve. God bless you. I like that, brother.